Abernathy, and I'm with Master The NEC. And today we're going to get into part 6 of Article 680. It's a 7-part series. We're at number 6 now, so hopefully you've watched part 1 all the way up through part 5, and now you're getting ready to watch part 6. And I want to thank you for coming here. Again, my name is Paul Abernathy. I'm the founder of Master The NEC. I've also worked for Encore Wire Corporation as head of their Codes and Standards Division. And I travel around the country teaching codes and teaching engineers codes. And I'm also pretty knowledgeable when it comes to the National Electrical Code. I do serve on Code Making Panel 17, which deals with swimming pools, hot tub spas, therapeutic tubs and tanks, and all those aspects, hydro massage bathtubs. So I do serve on that code panel, as well as, again, Code Making Panel 5, dealing generally with the grounding and bonding aspects, but it has others as well, but that's what it's mostly known for. And so I have a little bit of understanding, and I like to bring that to you. Before I get started, again, it's not about me, it's about teaching you. So I want to remind you that we have Part 1, which is dealing with the general requirements in 680. We have Part 2, which is dealing with permanently installed swimming pools. Okay, and then we have a Part 3, which is dealing with storable pools, storable hot tubs, and storable spas. We have a Part 4 that's dealing with hot tubs and spas. We have about Part 5 that we just did recently that was dealing with fountains as permanently installed fountains. Remembering if it's a portable fountain, it's over in 422. And so we're up to Part 6. We only have one more to go. And on this one, we're actually going to deal with pools and tubs for therapeutic use. Okay, so we're going to deal with those. So hopefully you've gone back and you watched those other parts, and most importantly, you've watched Part 1, because Part 1 is going to apply as well here in Part 6. So hopefully you've watched that and you have an understanding of that. And so we'll be able to move on. So again, I want to encourage you to visit our website. That is masterthenec.com, .net, or .org. If you have an email question you'd like to send us, please feel free to do so at info@masterthenec.com. All right, so let's go on and get into Part 6, and let's talk about these pools and tubs for a therapeutic use application. All right, so let's get it started with the general requirement in 680.60. Again, we're dealing with pools and tubs for a therapeutic use. It reminds us that the provisions of Part 1 and Part 6 of this article shall apply to pools and tubs for therapeutic use in healthcare facilities, gymnasiums, athletic training rooms, and similar areas. It also reminds us that portable therapeutic appliances shall comply with Part 2 and Part 3 of Article 422. So if it's a portable therapeutic appliance, then it's going to apply to these as well. Okay. Now 680.61, we're going to talk about a permanently installed therapeutic pool. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. Now, this one's pretty significant because it's saying, look, if that's a permanently installed therapeutic pool, I know you got the requirements here of Part 6, and I know it said earlier that you got to meet Part 1, but here it's going to say, look, therapeutic pools that are constructed in the ground, on the ground, or in a building in such a manner that the pool cannot be readily disassembled. In other words, it's not portable. Then it has to also comply with Parts 1 and Part 2 of this article. Okay, so that would say that it has to do the general requirements, and also it's going to have to comply with a lot of these requirements that are in Part 2, which is permanently installed pools. Okay, so those are going to be told here, so that's the case if you're dealing with a permanently installed pool. Now, there is an exception to the rule here, and the exception says, well, the limitations of 680.22b1 through C4 shall not apply where all luminaires are of the totally enclosed type. So we have some luminaire requirements that are in 680.22b1 through C4, which are part of Part 2. But I actually think this is a typo within the National Electrical Code that still I don't believe has been corrected, because I believe it's actually B1 through B4, as I can't find a 680.22C4 located in the code. So I might be wrong, but I didn't see it as far as the 2004 14 code is concerned. So I believe there's a typo there. But anyway, that's what we're dealing with to make you aware of it, okay? So you got to deal with these applications, but again, the limitations that are found here in 680.22b1 through b4 shall not apply where the luminaires are actually enclosed, okay, totally enclosed. So just keep that in mind if you have to go back and deal with it. If they're not enclosed, then obviously the limitations are here are going to apply. All right, so this is an example of a hydrotherapeutic tub. All right. Now, 680.62 tubs and tanks. First thing we're going to read you is what actual 680.62 says. You don't have to read it. I will read it to you, and then we'll see how each one of these apply. All right, a therapeutic tub used for submersion or treatment of patients that are not easily moved from one place to another in normal use, or that are fastened or otherwise secured at the specific location, including associated piping systems, shall comply with Part 6. Okay, so we have to comply with Part 6. It describes what we're dealing with, these therapeutic tubs or hydrotherapeutic tanks. Okay, so they're not easily moved from one place to another, they're not portable, and they have to meet the requirements of Part 6. Okay, and again, you know, we want to make sure that we cover this because the permanently installed therapeutic pools are required to meet Part 1 and Part 2. The therapeutic tubs or hydrotherapeutic tanks are different than the pools. They're required to meet Part 6. Okay? So that's important that you understand that you've got the requirement here for the pools, therapeutic pools, and then you've got this, which is dealing with the tanks. All right? And it reminds you that, look, it has to, if it's a therapeutic tub or hydrotherapeutic tank, we're not talking about a therapeutic pool, then this one has to meet the requirements of Part 6. Okay? All right, so what is number 1A? It says protection. Except as otherwise provided in this section, the outlets that supplies a self-contained therapeutic tub or hydrotherapeutic tank, a packaged therapeutic tub or hydrotherapeutic tank, or a field-assembled therapeutic tub or hydrotherapeutic tank shall be protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter. Okay, so the tub or the tanks, again, we're not talking about the pools here. They have to also, the pools have to meet Part 1 and Part 2. Okay. All right, but right here, we're talking about the tubs and the tanks. Now, GFCI protection is required. Now, what about the listed units? It says the protection, it says listed units. Now, again, we're not at B, we're still on A. It says the listed units, and we're talking about those self-contained or listed package equipment, shall include integral ground fault circuit interrupter protection for all electrical parts within the unit or assembly. That is the pumps, the air blower, heater, lighting, controls, sanitation, wiring, and so on, shall be permitted without additional GFCI protection. So if it's in the cord, there's your protection. It doesn't have to have any additional protection. Okay, we saw that as well in fountains just recently as well. Okay, no, not fountains. Actually saw that in a hot tub. That we saw that application where you could have a hot tub where it didn't need additional GFCI protection if it was a certain size, 20 amps or less, and and it was that design. Then you could have it built into the integral cord or whatnot. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about in that one. So that's the unit, and then we have the other units, which pretty much mirrors the same thing that we saw in the hot tubs and spas, and most notably probably the spas. And in this case, it says the therapeutic tub or hydrotherapeutic tank that is rated for 3-phase or is rated 250 volts or has a heater with a load of more than 50 amps, then it's, the supply is not required to have GFCI protection. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with that. For all other intensive purposes, we're going to have GFCI protection except for in these listed self-contained units or packaged equipment assembly units that are dealing with the hydrotherapy tank or therapeutic tubs, then we can have it integrated into the cord as well. Okay? All right, then we're going on to B. We're dealing with bonding when we're dealing with these hydrotherapeutic tanks or tubs. All right, so it says all metal parts and equipment of the tub or tank and any metal surfaces, metal wiring methods, and metal equipment shall be bonded together per part C. That's 1, 2, and 3. All right. So when you get to C, you're going to learn about the bonding methods, or how to do that bonding, how to tie all those metal parts together, and it's going to tell you how to do that and give you some methods for that, and that is going to be in C when we get there. We'll be there shortly. Okay. Now, the one thing that we do want to talk about, and I don't really have a slide for that, is because generally we're going to cover this one pretty quick, but I want you to just listen. I'm going to talk about the parts that need to be bonded together. Okay? And so what are we talking about? So in this hydrotherapy tank or therapeutic tub, that's what we're still dealing with now. We're not talking about the permanently installed therapeutic pools. Okay? We're talking about these tanks and these tubs here. All right, all metal fittings within or attached to the tub structure has to be bonded together. Metal parts of electrical equipment associated with the water circulating system, including the pump motors, has to be tied with the metal fittings that we just talked about. They have to be tied together. Any metal sheath, cable, or raceway, or metal piping that is within 5 feet of the inside wall of the tub, and not separated by a permanent barrier, it's got to be tied together. And all metal surfaces that are within 5 feet of the inside wall of the tub and not separated by a permanent barrier has to be bonded together. And of course, any electrical devices or controls that are not associated with the therapeutic tub but happens to be located in that 5-foot area of that tub has to be bonded together. Okay, so now we know that they have to be bonded together. Now we have that all-important exception that says, okay, let me tell you now. If we have small conductive surfaces that are likely to not become energized, such as air and water jets and drain fittings and so on, as long as it's not connected to metal piping, and we're talking about isolated towel bars, mirror frames, or other non-electrical equipment not connected to the metal frame, then you're not required to do any bonding of it. Okay, it's not necessary. Okay, so we have that small conductive surfaces. Okay, doesn't really give you any dimensions on that small conductive surface, but it does give you that exception for those small conductive surfaces that are not likely to become energized. It means they're isolated away, no power's running to them. There's no chance that they're going to be connected. And when we're talking about the drain part and jets, it's typically, if it's not connected to metal piping, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, that type of thing. Now we know we have to bond all these things together, so then we got to get to the method of doing that, and that's in item C. And so what methods can we use to bond all those things together that are found in B? All right, so that takes us to C. And C says, okay, look, if I have threaded metal piping in the fittings and they connect everything together, then they're all considered bonded together. I don't do anything. If I have metal-to-metal mounting on the common frame or the base of the tub, the hydrotherapy tank or tub, then I'm okay. I don't have to do anything. If I have a connection by suitable metal clamps that clamps one component to the other onto this frame, then I don't have to do anything. Now, by the provisions of this, I can also use a solid copper bonding jumper that is insulated, cover, or bare, not smaller than an 8 gauge, to tie all those components that are required in B that we just read together. Then I can use any of those methods. So that gave me a 4 methods to do so. And that was 1, 2, 3, and 4. Most of the time it's the clamps and everything's bonded together onto the metal equipment, and so at that point it is all tied together through the frame, and then you don't have to do anything really. But if you had isolated components that were metal and all, then you could use a solid copper bonding jumper that is insulated, cover, or bare, not smaller than an 8 gauge, could be larger than an 8 gauge, I wouldn't, not necessary to be, and you would tie all these things together. Okay? All right, what about receptacles? All right, that takes us to E. All receptacles within 6 feet of the tub or tank shall be protected with a GFCI. Okay, so all receptacles installed within 6 feet of a therapeutic tub shall be required. All right, what about luminaires? Luminaires in the area shall be totally enclosed type. You have no other options here for luminaires. Any of the luminaires that are in this application here have to be totally enclosed type of luminaires. Okay, no other allowances here. It says it point blank under item F. It says, look, all luminaires used in therapeutic tub areas shall be of the totally enclosed type. No other rules there. That is the rules. All right, so looks like we finished that one pretty quick. I don't know how much time we took on that one. Boy, that was like 15 minutes. You know daggone well I can't let us get away from it that quick, right? I mean, we just can't end it up that quick. All right, so one thing to remember that we have pools. They're therapeutic pools. They're permanently installed. They are in the ground. They're on the ground or in the building. They have to meet, and they're not readily disassembled. They got to meet part 1 and part 2. So you got all those requirements in part 2 they're going to have to meet, okay? Only exception to that is 680.22b1 through b4. All right, that is your luminaire limitation, okay? And then where they're totally enclosed, okay? And we know they have to be enclosed when you're dealing with a hydrotherapeutic tank or tub location, okay? All right, so this is a pool, so this is going to meet some of these pool requirements that are found in part 2, and this is just saying, well, you know what, if it's totally enclosed, don't worry about it. All right, and then again, there's a tub or tank. And we covered those applications and all the bonding. And again, if you watch the requirements in previous parts, you kind of see that they're pretty close and they mirror each other. All right, well, unfortunately, I cannot belabor that one any longer. That is going to be the shortest one of the whole series. So if you're dealing with therapeutic tubs or hydrotherapeutic tanks, then you have all these requirements. If you're dealing with permanently installed therapeutic pools, which tend to be a lot larger inside of a building and a lot of healthcare facilities and whatnot like that, then you're dealing with that, and you're going to remember that part 2 is going to apply. You're going to meet the requirements of part 2 accordingly. Again, it's a pool. It's inside of in a building, and if you remember back in part 2, it's considered permanently installed if it's in a building, so you got to meet those requirements that are in part 2. That's why it made that statement. Then, of course, you get to the requirements on 680.62, and then everything subsequently after that is going to deal with a tub or a tank, whether it's a hydrotherapeutic or therapeutic, okay? So that's how they kind of work. So hopefully if you're dealing with those, it's a really short part, but it helps you understand a little better. So hopefully you got something out of that. I'm even going to remind you, go back and watch part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now you've watched part 6. So you're kind of building up that knowledge. And again, nothing that you have gotten when you went to college, like where? Right here. See it is right here? This is a Bachelor's of Electrical Engineering. This one right here is a Bachelor of Business Management. Teaches you absolutely zero about the National Electrical Code. Where do you get that knowledge? You come to the Master NEC. Well, I'm not the master. It's the name of the website, Master The NEC. I'm not a guru, okay? I like to teach code, all right? So anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully you got something out of it. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at info@masterthenec.com or go to the website, it says masterthenec.com, .net, or .org. Pass those around. If you also wish to opine, go to our website and click on the link to the message board. Join in the message board. You can get in the chat room, or you can actually get an account and post your questions in there. We'll get you some answers to your questions, give you interpretations, whatever you might need. If you got questions about wiring cable, when you can use a cable method in here, there, whatever you can do, email us, info@masterthenec.com. We'll answer all those questions too. So hopefully you enjoyed this part here, part 6. And stay tuned for part 7, where we wrap up this 7-part series with hydro massage bathtubs. And that one might even be shorter than this one was. So anyway, we did this in under 20 minutes. So thanks for watching. Until next time.